All right, welcome back. It is the Vegas Take. Sharp and Shapiro. So glad you could join us. Wow, what a crazy few weeks it's been in the world of boxing. My goodness. I mean, some good news and some really bad news, right? I mean, the good news is, gosh, we've had some great fights, right? We had a great fight over the weekend in Vegas. The Pacquiao-Thurman fight was fantastic. I was there. We lost Sweet Pea Whitaker, a legend in the sport, just a tragedy. And now, Maxim Dadashev, who fought on Friday, top-rank promotions fight, dies of his injuries. He's got a wife and a 2-year-old. Boy, just the ups and downs of this sport. I mean, just some horrible stories, some good, like I said, some good and some bad. No better person to talk about this than Boxing Hall of Famer, one of the best in the business, and we're very lucky to have him on, Al Bernstein, who also is going to be singing at the Tuscany next Friday. This man can sing. He's quite the musician. Al, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate you coming on.
Nice to be with you.
I was gonna ask you before we get to anything really serious. When are you gonna sing for us on the show? That's what I want to know.
Well, I'll have to come in the studio and do that for you. Maybe that's the answer.
We would love for you to do that. One of these days, you got to
be outstanding.
That would be great.
And we would definitely film that.
That'd be a lot of fun. All right, so let's start with some tough news. And obviously, it's a big story, a tragedy in the boxing world. Maxim Dadashev. This was a really tough kid, right? 28 years old. He was hospitalized Friday after a fight. And the incredible thing is he wanted to go on in this fight. His trainer said, he told him, I'm stopping it. And he says, no, don't. He actually wanted to go on. It's just a horrible tragedy. Al, what do you make of this?
Yeah, it's very sad. In combat sports, one of the byproducts sometimes of it is a situation like this, which is tragic and terrible. There is, unfortunately, it seems, no way to, as much as, the sports try to put in more safety measures, stop matches quicker, and make sure that the testing is better in terms of brain tests and all the rest. Inevitably, things like this are going to happen, and it's tragic. It's and in this instance, I think they did stop it at a certain point, and they thought it would, it might be soon enough, but it wasn't.
Now, Al, tell me if you, I'm sure you'll probably agree with this. My opinion on this is, they did everything they could. I don't think anybody made any mistakes here. I think everybody acted professional and proper. I think he got the health care that he needed to get. They did everything they could to save his life. And I think it's just one of those things where you say to yourself, boxing is a dangerous sport. It is unfortunate, just like NASCAR or anything else. It is so unfortunate, but these things are going to happen. We hope they never happen, but they're going to. It's inevitable. And like I said, I don't think anybody made any mistakes here. I think the bottom line is MMA, boxing, NASCAR. These are dangerous sports where you're risking your life.
Yeah, I think the review of this will show that the people involved acted as well as they could in the circumstances, and as you point out, it's a very dangerous sport. You mentioned several other sports that are in a similar situation, and it is a tragedy when it happens. It's just a very, very difficult situation.
Did you go back and watch any of that fight on YouTube? Because I did, and I noticed that he was, for the first 9 rounds or so, I mean, he didn't even get knocked down. He took some shots, but it wasn't. There was nothing really clean. And in the 11th round, the beginning of the 3rd minute of round 11, he took a shot where his head kind of had a whiplash effect, and you could tell that he was really, really hurt. Did you get a chance to go back and watch any of that?
I didn't get a chance to go back and see it again, but I know what you're talking about. So that was certainly a pivotal point.
Yeah, no question. And our condolences, thoughts, and prayers to his family. A horrible tragedy. And as I mentioned, there's ups and downs in this sport, right? We have this happen. Sweet Pea Whitaker loses his life. Horrible tragedy. I was at the Pac-Man fight against Thurman, and I tell you, I thought that was a fantastic fight. And were you surprised, Al, at his speed and power? Manny Pacquiao at the age of 40, I kind of compared him to Tom Brady. I mean, these guys are now in their 40s, and they're at the top of their game still, dominating a guy like Thurman, who's a very good fighter, undefeated.
Yeah, I thought the one part about the fight that was extraordinary, and I think was to me is maybe the key element of this, in addition to the fact that Pacquiao performed well, he was hit with 7 or 8 monstrous right hands by Thurman. I mean, as good as Thurman can throw. And they were not game changers. And I think part of the reason that if people felt Thurman was going to win this fight, or Thurman himself or his team, they felt that he would hit Pacquiao with something that would be a game changer. Well, he did hit him with, like I say, 7 or 8 monstrous right hands. And Pacquiao was able to shake them off, which is extraordinary. And, you go back to when Pacquiao was stopped by Marquez, who was a smaller man than Thurman, and yet he was able to knock Pacquiao out, literally out. Part of the reason was Pacquiao was coming in, the perfect angle of the perfect punch, and Pacquiao goes out. But it is still pretty remarkable that at 40, Pacquiao took the punches of, this younger champion who is a good puncher. Now, some people have suggested that Keith Thurman, who hasn't had a lot of knockouts lately, he's not as powerful as they think. Well, I think his recent lack of knockouts has come from the way he was fighting. He was really fighting off the back foot in a defensive posture. Those punches he landed against Pacquiao, he got all his weight into those punches. He was moving forward. So you would have thought they would have had a bigger impact. Now, I thought the fight was like 7 rounds for Pacquiao, 5 for Thurman.
Yep.
And with the knockdown, I think the 115-112 score was appropriate.
So what would you say about the one judge's scorecard that had Thurman winning the fight?
No, with Pacquiao winning.
No, I understand. But what would you say to the one judge who actually had Thurman?
Well, here's the thing. Glenn Feldman's a very good judge. And I think you can make a case for Thurman winning 6 rounds in that fight, perhaps, possibly. But because of the knockdown, that would still leave Pacquiao ahead. So I wouldn't agree with Glenn's card.
Right.
Even if you got him to 6, if it was 6 rounds to 6, that knockdown would have given a 1-point victory to Manny Pacquiao.
Mm-hmm. I think the real question is...
It's hard for me to see the 114, 113 for Thurman. I guess it's possible. There were rounds he won for sure, a bunch of rounds, but it's hard for me to see that being the case, especially with the 10-8 round for Pacquiao.
Sure. I think the real question is, if Thurman wasn't out gambling till 3 o'clock in the morning the night before, would he have won the fight?
That's what I was going to ask you, Al. So I was talking to some of Thurman's guys who are very close to him. I'm not going to say who they were, but very credible people. And they said that Thurman was out late Friday night gambling. Now, my first reaction to that is this is probably the biggest fight in Thurman's career, okay? Mm-hmm. To me, that talks a little bit about his mindset. Maybe it wasn't where it needed to be, number one. And number two, he gets knocked down. I felt like the first round kind of set the tone for the fight. Do you think that there is any chance here that Thurman might have taken Pacquiao a little lightly here?
Yeah, that would indicate some form of complacency or feeling, overconfidence that you're going to win the fight, if in fact that's true. And I have heard that from several people as well. Which is pretty extraordinary when you think about it.
How does that happen, Al? How does that happen? You've been covering this sport forever. You're a legend in this sport. Can you recall, and I'm sure you have some stories like this, where you were covering a fight and one of the guys, it was arguably the biggest fight of their career, and they were out partying the night before? Can you recall that?
Well, there have been fighters that have, leading up to a fight, one of the most celebrated situations was Leon Spinks in his second fight with Muhammad Ali.
Wow.
They literally couldn't find him for 3 or 4 days. He was in New Orleans, in a part of New Orleans that, how shall I say this, you didn't want to go into alone. And Leon Spinks, they couldn't find him for 3 days. Finally, they located him a couple days before the fight. And so that was probably the most celebrated. And there have been other instances where fighters have just, not paid attention to being disciplined. This is pretty extraordinary, though. And it may indicate that Thurman had, in his mind that I think he believed one punch was going to change this fight, and then he would move on from there. And that's why I keep talking about the power punches that landed. I think Thurman and his team were 100% convinced that one of those big punches was going to change the fight. Either Pacquiao would get so hurt that he could go in after him, or it would make Pacquiao, timid about coming in, all those things. And that wasn't the case.
I cannot believe that Leon Spinks went missing in a bad part of New Orleans.
Oh, trust me. He was literally AWOL before the second Muhammad Ali fight. It was pretty crazy.
That's incredible.
That is
if you're
wonderful.
just joining us, Boxing Hall of Famer Al Bernstein, next Friday, catch him at the Tuscany. This man can sing. I've seen him in action, and we got to get him in studio one of these days. Okay, so let's move on now. As you know, Floyd Mayweather was at the fight. That doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to be fighting Manny Pacquiao, but you know the buzz is there, Al. You know how this business works. There's so much money to be made if they fight again. Assuming that Manny Pacquiao is healthy, assuming that Floyd Mayweather will get back into conditioning, which I have no doubt he would, although he's not getting any younger. Do you think what percentage would you put on this fight possibly happening at some point in the next years, 12 to 18 months?
I actually don't think it's going to happen. I know that sounds ridiculous because it seems like the
I'm disappointed.
gods of boxing have created a situation where it's perfect for it to happen. I don't know if Mayweather's coming back, and I don't know if that is on the docket. I have a feeling that we're going to probably go without that. And I think part of that is I don't think Mayweather feels up to coming back at this juncture with a long layoff. And Manny Pacquiao, of course, is fighting very well. Pacquiao did have an injury in that last fight with Mayweather. It was inappropriate for him to not tell the public or anyone about it.
I agree.
But there was no question there was an injury.
Mm-hmm.
How much that impaired him, that's another question. But nonetheless, he's fighting very well. And we don't know how Floyd Mayweather would fight after this layoff. Now, he always came back great off layoffs when he was younger, but now he's older. So there's no telling how he will come in. So I just have a feeling, though, that that things have moved on beyond the idea of that fight.
See, that's disappointing. I was thinking, actually, the way that Pacquiao fought against Thurman, I think he could actually he would have a legitimate chance to beat Mayweather, and I think that could possibly be the first ever $1 billion fight. That being said, I'm from Omaha, Nebraska, and so is Terrence Crawford. Give me one fighter right now that you think would actually give Terrence a legitimate fight.
Would give who a legitimate fight?
Terrence Crawford.
Well, Spence, obviously, but beyond Spence, you mean?
Yeah.
Let's see. Well, I think legitimate fight. I think somebody like Sean Porter would make a good fight against Terrence Crawford for sure. I mean, that would be a good fight. I don't know whether he'd beat him or not.
Mm-hmm.
Pacquiao and Crawford would be interesting, I guess, given how he's fought. So, I mean, you'd have to look at those people, I think, for the most part. I don't think I would put Danny Garcia in that situation. Thurman, I'd probably not, based on his loss to Pacquiao, although I don't know. I think Terrence Crawford is a very, 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 very good fighter. But I believe that he hasn't fought a lot of upper echelon welterweights.
I agree.
Just not because of his own doing, but just because of the way the politics of boxing have laid out. So has he even really fought fighters of the level of Sean Porter and Pacquiao and Thurman and certainly not Spence? He hasn't had a chance to have those kinds of tough fights, whereas all those other people have. Now, Spence himself has, to be honest, I can also say, has not fought as a steady diet of tough welterweights. He won the title from Kell Brook in England, which was quite an extraordinary thing, and Brook was fighting very well and fought well in that fight. But since then, there haven't been a lot of opportunities. He fought a great fighter in Mikey Garcia, but clearly Garcia was coming way up in weight. So there's a little mystery still left in some of the situations with the welterweights. Danny Garcia, Thurman, and Sean Porter have had a round robin of fights in effect. So they've certainly fought each other, and we know Pacquiao has fought, just about everybody.
Right.
So in a way, it's Spence and Crawford, who we know are extraordinarily good but we haven't seen them in on a regular basis with top fighters.
Answer this for me, Al. Do you think there's a better chance that the Mayweather-Pacquiao fight does happen, or that Adrian Broner gives you a call and asks you out to dinner?
I believe that the Pacquiao-Mayweather fight is more likely, yes.
All right, fair enough.
I'm pretty sure, although the last
That's a
time
great question.
after Adrian, had his say at the press conference.
His say.
In fact, it's funny. That night, I was singing at the Tuscany. I was doing a show at the Tuscany Casino, and I tweeted out that I was saving a seat for him should he want to come and hear the performance. And sadly, he never showed up. So
what a shocker.
Pretty sure we're not going to see Adrian Broner and I dining in the near future. I'm just guessing.
For the record, you were the utmost professional in that situation. I just wanted to tell you that. I mean, what he said to you, he was a complete and utter disgrace. I don't even think he should be boxing anymore because, to me, he's not a professional boxer anymore as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, I want to move on real quickly to Canelo Alvarez, Triple G. Any idea of when this fight is going to happen? Is it going to happen in Vegas? What's the latest you could tell us on that?
Well, the latest is that Canelo looks like he's going to fight Dermachenko, who is a good fighter, Dmitry, but that's not Triple G. And of course, DAZN, who paid Canelo lots and lots of money. Mm-hmm. I think their thoughts were that by now, they had him fight Rocky Fielding. He fought Danny Jacobs, which was a very tough fight, and props to both men for making it. But I think they really thought the Triple G fight was going to happen much, in the near future, not the far future. And now if he's going to fight another fight against, I think if he was fighting Demetrius Andrade, then you might give him a pass on this. But Dermachenko, who's a good fighter, that doesn't feel like the kind of fight he should be taking for $35 million.
I agree. Al, who is your number one pound for pound fighter in the world right now?
Pound for pound in the world today, right now. Let's see. I'm not a big pound for pound guy so much, but it comes down to between, in my mind, comes down to probably between Lomachenko and Crawford and Spence. Mm-hmm. Those are the names that jump to my mind. Sure. That have been consistently excellent.
Mm-hmm. Those are three pretty big names, so I don't blame you for bringing them up. Yeah.
I could probably pick some others.
Sure.
But, I mean, those are guys that. Now I will, and by the way, I will say that. Watching Teofimo Lopez in his last fight, he is definitely not ready for Vasily Lomachenko. Mm-hmm. He's a good young fighter. His chances against Richard Comey, in my mind, that is a pick-em fight.
Interesting.
And maybe I would make Comey a slight favorite. Now, this is not to diss Teofimo Lopez. He's a terrific young fighder, but he is 21 years of age.
Young without the experience. Young, without the experience.
Yeah, he hasn't fought the kind of competition that I think would make it advisable to fight Vasily Lomachenko.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll tell you what, one of the best pound-for-pound singers in Las Vegas is the man we have with us on the line right now, Boxing Hall of Famer Al Bernstein. So, Al, I want people to come out and catch you at the Tuscany. You put on a great show, man. Can you give out?
Here, I'm going to give you. Here's what I'm going to give you. Here's a little taste of a song that I'm going to do there.
Oh, I love it.
That I used to do. This was written for me back when I was at ESPN before I got the Showtime.
I love it. I'm ready.
And it goes like this. I woke up in Chicago, had my eggs and toast, packed my overnight bag, then headed for the coast. The airport's always crowded, but everybody's got to pay their dues. I got the ESPN Sports Announcers Blues.
Yeah.
So that one, we're going to be doing that one on April 2nd at the Tuscany Casino Piazza Lounge. We're also going to do some country songs, some Great American Songbook, some show tunes, some blues, and it's part of the Kenny Davidson show there. And in addition, there'll be many great guest singers that come by. It's a wonderful night. If people haven't been there on Friday nights for the Kenny Davidson show, he has a guest host every week, and it's a wonderful experience. So I hope they can come out on August 2nd And I'm also going to be giving away a couple of my books, too.
Oh, wow. That's great. And hey, you know what? You are not only one of the best in the business as far as covering the sport of boxing and a Hall of Famer, you have quite the voice, my friend.
Al, you can really croon.
It's a great avocation. And I think some of the fans get a kick out of seeing me do something different. So,
hey, I'd rather listen to you than Justin Bieber any day of the week. I'll tell you that right now.
There you go. You're too kind. I wish I had his money.
Yeah, I wish I did.
Nice.
I wish I did too.
We all wish we had his money.
Yes, I wish I did too. Al, eventually I want to get you in studio, my man. Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
We'll talk about that.
Thank you, Al. Thank you so much for your time. You're always gracious with your time.
You guys take care.
Thank you so much.
See you later,
there you go. Boxing Hall of Famer Al Bernstein. We got him to sing a little bit. I'm excited about that. You know what else I'm excited about, JD?
That was some quality crooning.
That was quality.
Brian.
We got a quality guy coming in studio here, coming outside of this break. His name is Joe Cortez. He is a very, very famous referee. He's been in the ring with doing some of the best fights ever. He's also been in some movies. And I want to get his take on what took place over the weekend in this horrible tragedy with Maxim Dadashev. The legend himself, Joe Cortez, will be joining us in studio next. You're listening to the Vegas Take right here on the all-new 101.5 FM, 720 AM KDWN.